welcome to the SVG-TV News for today, Tuesday, May 26th. I am Khalil Kato with the details. SVG today welcomed home 356 Vincentian crew members from the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. The Vision of the Seas arrived in Vincentian waters at around 4 o'clock this morning with the sailors on board. All 356 of them were expected to be screened for COVID-19 using rapid and PCR tests. A news release from the COVID-19 task force said due to the time required to process this number of tests, it is anticipated that the Vincentian crew members may not complete disembarking the ship before Thursday. Crew members found to be positive for COVID-19 are expected to be placed in a government-approved isolation facility until they have recovered, as evidenced by 2 consecutive negative PCR COVID-19 tests. Crew members who are negative for COVID-19 will be allowed to quarantine in their private homes for the required 14-day period. The COVID-19 task force said this enhanced repatriation protocol is aimed at minimizing the risk of importing new COVID-19 cases into St. Vincent and the Grenadines posed by this particular group of Vincentians. The task force said the increased risk was determined in view of reports of the presence of known COVID-19 cases on the ships of origin of some of the crew members and more recent reports of crew members testing positive for COVID-19 on disembarking this particular ship. The COVID-19 task force said it is committed to reducing the risk of new importation and subsequent exposure of the Vincentian public to COVID-19. It noted that every effort is being made and existing protocols will be continuously reviewed to ensure that COVID-19 remains contained in this country. And in-country testing for COVID-19 is yet to commence. However, Minister of Health, Wellness and the Environment Luke Brown is hoping for a start in the next 2 days, telling SVG-TV News that they are in the process of looking for adequate space to carry out testing.
To have the PCR sorted out by this week to commence testing this week, but there was a little bit of a delay in terms of the space that we're going to use. We have to just make some modifications to that space, which should be done within the next day or 2, and then we would be able to get the PCR machine in action.
Asked his stance on the testing done for COVID-19 in SVG, Minister Brown said that he is satisfied that they have carried out tests on all persons with symptoms of the virus in the country.
All suspect cases that have come to our attention, and we even carried out some additional testing on other groups via PCR. Apart from that, we have been using the rapid test as a means of screening and surveillance in the communities. I think we have an appropriate testing strategy for our circumstances, and we will continue to elaborate that testing strategy. And now that we have the PCR machine, it might give us some greater flexibility and maneuverability with respect to testing persons of interest.
President of the SVG Teachers Union, Oswald Robinson, has lauded teachers for returning to their classrooms to ensure students get the necessary face-to-face teaching amidst the threat of COVID-19. Speaking with SVG-TV News via telephone, Robinson said that they understand the challenges the teachers face and commended them for remaining true to their commitment to teaching.
We have to salute our teachers for really braving the storm, because had it not for the commitment, the dedication of our teachers, there will be no school taking place. And I'm extremely happy that our teachers have once again established that education is a fundamental human right, and they are willing to make the sacrifice for their students' education.
The SVGTU president said based on his assessment, there were some challenges experienced by some on their first day back in the classroom on Monday, and they have brought these to the attention of the Ministry of Education.
There are few schools where there are no janitors. Teachers still have to be sanitizing their furniture. One or two schools don't have any security, daytime security. and I have communicated that to the Ministry of Education. The secondary school students, from what we have observed, they have not been adhering to social distancing, especially when they're outside. They still continue to congregate, jamming up on each other and that sort of thing. They're not maintaining any social distancing outside.
Robinson said that generally he's pleased with the Ministry of Education's response in dealing with the reopening of schools, knowing that there will be challenges. Minister of Education Sinclair Jimmy Prince said those schools reopened on Monday for some students and teachers, that should be for some students and teachers, the online modalities will continue. Minister Prince told SVG-TV News that the online platform would not only be available for students at home, but also for Form 5 and Grade 6 students who have returned to school to further assist them in their preparation for regional examinations, as well as students who are unable to return to school because of health reasons.
The online modality continues, of course, even for the fifth formers and the grade 6s. Teachers, even at school, they are doing online, right? Some of those teachers who can come to school are doing online also for their students. But that continues. It will continue to complement and supplement what we have in place in face-to-face. We are not going to abandon that just yet. In fact, we won't abandon it ever, I think, but at the moment we continue the same way that we have been going. Of course, we have the standardized platform which the Ministry of Education through its curriculum development unit is using.
Minister Prince said though there have been some challenges with online teaching, with some students not having the devices to accommodate e-learning, the teachers have been doing their best to ensure these students still receive the learning materials.
Continue the online school. Teachers are very conscientious in that regard. Of course, there are some challenges. Some students don't bother to log on. When they log on, they don't do anything. Some of them still don't have devices, which we are trying to rectify at the moment. But online school has been going generally okay, and we intend to continue it and to perfect it.
Given the COVID-19 pandemic effect on the education sector, which forced the closure of schools, some persons have argued that the June-July exams should have been pushed back to a later date. But the education minister said the earlier the exams are held, the better for the smooth transition of students into higher learning institutions.
There are many schools have thought on that. I think the earlier we get rid of it, the better, you know. Better for matriculation and transition into other institutions, etc. I think the longer we keep it, the more anxious the students are going to become, the more psychosocial problems they're going to have. And our situation here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is not as bad as it maybe in Jamaica. I don't see why we shouldn't have the exams in July.
Meanwhile, educator Philbert John suggests schools island-wide should be reopened fully as soon as possible. Speaking on SVG-TV's Viewpoint program last Sunday, John said that the closure of schools for almost 2 months is taking a toll on teachers and students who should be back in their classrooms with all the necessary safety measures in place.
And these are human beings at home, generally, significantly, a number of them just languishing. And that's an example of the kind of impact we've had, that COVID has had on the education system. Now, attempts are being made, some successful, some not so successful, and engaging in distance or e-learning as the case may be. And again, as you go on, you could see whether or not that is having any impact. The case I want to make, if you give me the opportunity, is for us to reopen schools as soon as possible, with due regard for all the guidelines being offered by agencies such as WHO, UNICEF, and even the World Bank have been giving governments, authorities, ideas as to what they should put in place to safely have schools open.
Education consultant Dr. Alston Stoddard is not in agreement with John's position and commended the Ministry of Education for taking steps to ensure the environment is safe before the full reopening of schools can take place.
Let us assume that the infection rate was higher, and for some reason school was in session and we know how children mix and mingle, and we had an outbreak in school, we would have been at a point in our history where we would have had a lot of dead children, and we could not, because we couldn't, it would have been difficult for us to contain it. So I think the closure of school was a precaution against the worst. And I would not knock the authorities for that. If you look at what has happened in America, schools were closed. And even when they're discussing the reopening of schools, they're doing that cautiously.
Opposition leader Dr. Godwin Friday has expressed condolences to the families of 72-year-old Freddie Neert and 12-year-old Lindani Neverson, who died on Sunday after receiving first and second-degree burns and in the gas station fire at Clifton, Union Island last Tuesday. The third burn victim, 17-year-old Shagniqua Azaria Alexander, who sustained second and third-degree burns, is in Trinidad and Tobago seeking further medical attention. Speaking on the NDP's Facebook Monday Night Live program, Dr. Friday said that the unfortunate death of the gas station owner Freddie Neert and the 12-year-old student came as a shock and encouraged Vincentians to keep the third burn victim in their prayers.
She was transported to Trinidad yesterday. I got an update just about an hour or so ago about her condition. She seems like she's in Trinidad and San Fernando, and she has had some treatment there for the most urgent things that were affecting her, and I'm told that she's resting comfortably, hopefully.
Nice.
That this will continue, and our prayers go with her and her family members. They must be going through hell.
I could only imagine.
To have to experience this at this time. So we continue to pray for them, and I ask the nation to continue to pray for them. It's always difficult when you have a tragedy of this sort, when it involves youngsters.
Dr. Friday said the gas station fire should be a lesson which teaches safety protocols that must be insisted upon, especially in an environment dealing with hazardous substances, and how to respond in the event of a major fire.
About safety protocols that you have to insist upon in an environment involving gasoline, fuel, and also in how we address fires, respond to them, and then of course in our healthcare system, rapidly transporting people who are seriously injured to a facility where they can get competent treatment. One of the problems we have in this country is that a lot of our people feel that the healthcare system in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is substandard, that they don't feel that we have and this is not a criticism of the staff and the people at the hospital. I've been down there many times, and I know that they do heroic work down there. They do beyond what the materials that they have at their disposal. It's a criticism of the system in general that we have not invested what is necessary to ensure that the basic healthcare requirements are met. Here we.
The opposition leader said there is also the need to have independent fire services with the capability of responding to major fires or hazards.
The fire service is something that we have to seriously attend to, because we don't have a separate fire service as they do in other places where you have a first responders who are trained in fire service and various emergency interventions and so on. And it's time that we look to see how we can develop an independent fire service with the capability to respond to these kinds of crises. And we know also that since the community becomes involved, almost in every fire, I've been myself involved in one a few years ago in Beckway, where the community came together to put out a fire not too far from where I live. And that's some training, as it used to do, with first aid training.
Right.
You have training of individuals in the community, so there could be volunteer firefighters.
Police are investigating the circumstances surrounding the death of Morales Delano Stanley, a 45-year-old laborer of Chauncey. According to investigations, Stanley's motionless body was discovered in a pool of blood at the family home at about 7 o'clock this morning by his mother, who subsequently informed the police. The district medical officer was summoned to the scene and pronounced Stanley dead. A post-mortem examination is expected to be carried out on the body to ascertain the cause of death. Meanwhile, police are now investigating the death of a 17-year-old Joanny Roberts of Redemption Sharps. According to investigations, at about 12:45 p.m. yesterday, the 17-year-old was walking along the Gun Hill public road when he was allegedly approached by an unknown masked gunman. He was shot multiple times about his body and rushed to the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital by persons in the community. He passed away earlier this afternoon. And the police are also investigating the circumstances surrounding a report of attempted murder on a 46-year-old man of Greggs. According to a news release from the police, at about 3:30 a.m. on Saturday, a known male assailant with the intent to commit the act of murder on the virtual complainant shot him on the right side of his neck at Greggs. Police are seeking the assistance of the public in obtaining any information that would lead to the apprehension and prosecution of the offender or offenders in these matters. The SVG Prison Service last Wednesday received a donation of sanitary supplies to help minimize the risk of infection and transmission of COVID-19 in prisons. The donation was made by the CARICOM Implementation Agency for Crime and Security Impacts with the generous support of the British High Commission in Port of Spain through the British government's Conflict Stability and Security Fund, CSSF. In SVG, there have been no confirmed cases of COVID-19 in prisons. However, with an outbreak of the virus, the lives of approximately 450 prisoners, 140 prison staff, and the general public will be at risk, potentially placing tremendous strain on the public health system. The sanitary supplies, which include infrared thermometers as well as cleaning products such as disinfectants, liquid soap, bleach, hand sanitizers, and other necessary supplies, were handed over to the Superintendent of Prisons, Brenton Charles, at the Argyle International Airport. Resident British Commissioner Steve Moore and Acting Executive Director of CARICOM Impacts, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Jones, were at the AIA to witness the delivery of the items. The supplies provided are in accordance with guidelines issued by the World Health Organization, the WHO, for the prevention and control of the pandemic in prisons. CARICOM Impacts and the United Kingdom's efforts to prevent COVID-19 infections in prisons will continue next week, with donations of similar basic sanitation supplies to 11 other CARICOM member states. The Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force, the RSVGPF Police Training School, will hold its 38th passing out parade of recruits this Thursday. It will happen at the Victoria Park beginning at 4:30 p.m. During the parade, a total of 105 recruits will take the oath of office as police officers in accordance with the Police Amendment Act 2018. Commandant of the Police Training School, Superintendent of Police Benzel Samuel will deliver the Commandant's address, Commissioner of Police Colin John will deliver remarks, and Prime Minister Dr. Alf Gonsalves, who is also Minister of National Security, will deliver the feature address. The proceedings will culminate with the presentation of awards, displays, and march past. The RSVG Police Force said due to the COVID-19 global pandemic and protocols to be adopted, there will be certain restrictions and guidelines during the parade. They are as such. All attendees are advised to adhere to the physical distancing guidelines by staying at least 3 to 6 feet apart at all times. Sanitization stations will be set up at entry points to the park, and wearing of masks is advised, as well as all guests are asked to be seated by 4:15 p.m.